It's the first time I'm seeing this service mark, Venture Smarts. Let's hear all about it.
All right, fun-filled throw right, action-packed good time. About 45 minutes to go. We will finish on the hour. You guys can keep chatting, but unfortunately, we've got places to be. Joe, as always, damn good to see you, buddy.
Thanks.
As everyone might know, Joe and I go back a few days. I think it was would have been 2007, 2008.
No, it's 2011. It's
2011.
I just
that's right.
Last month was 10 years since I started out on my own.
Okay, very good. So privileged to be here. I'm also grateful that Alan somehow can join us wherever he went. Alan is my partner in this Venture Smarts thing, and we brought Nikhil and Ann, two different parts of what we're doing in Venture Smarts. So Venture Smarts is one of these things that we've decided to get into incubating. Now, I really think about this in terms of how we can actually let something that's got the right ingredients grow and rise. This is different. That's why I put Brett up there. This is different than the normal thing where we're not going to hatch you. I always thought this was kind of a put down, we're going to incubate this company. Like we're going to sit on it and add heat and then let all this stuff stew and that sort of stuff. And finally the little baby bird hatches and then we feed it. I just haven't really liked it. It's been the descriptive terms out there, not very flattering. And so, studio and a bunch of other stuff have been added to this story. And that's the case. We have a strong background in commercialization, and we do commercialization services from a consulting and sales standpoint, sales development. And we've had a lot of small companies come to us and say, hey, can you help us? We'll pay you in stock, give us some equity for you. And, we run a pretty successful business. And so you'd think that that's every now and then you get like, I like the idea, I like the founder. Sounds good. I mean, I like the story. And we get wooed, get brought in. Oh, it rarely turns out well for either person because there's a lack of commitment when we don't make a cash investment in something. And secondly, the economics of it just don't pan out. Other things then distract, the services firm from being committed to this as well. So there's two incentives that go the wrong direction in this normal situation. So from a commercialization services standpoint, we've got actually a lot of tools that we bring into bear, and that means that we're going to help you tune things up, speed things up, and so on. But it takes an investment of time, effort, and some funds to get the raw materials. So our studio is very much focused on where we can add value to commercializing a concept, which is put it through the ringer and get funding. We have some funders that are working with us. We're trying to raise an actual formal fund. It won't be that large, but we're also partnered with quite a few venture studios on each coast, a few venture capital partners, and that list is growing daily because what we do is unique enough in this space as far as commercialization to be compelling and interesting to these folks with smart money. And what we do, and then I'll hand it over to Alan just to mention a little bit, is we provide some executive in residence. We've got the CEO development education components bolted down out of our training business, which you remember us pushing quite a bit, Joe. We'll find the right funding, the smart money if necessary. But more importantly, one of the things we all need when we're new and starting up, unless you're Ann, is clients. We need raving fans to start pulling for you and that sort of stuff so that the right valuation happens when you're starting your company up. So because of this, we developed a demand creation as a service business where we have a fully contingency-based sales organization that goes out on the margin and on a commission-only basis with no commitment represents you to the organizations that we have in our marketplace. Very experienced, very tenured salespeople. We're not just limited to my 28 years in the market, but a lot of other people who have held very lofty positions, started businesses, and have a lot of connections and want to put some really great innovations into the marketplace. And we're able to, with a fairly small team, create a fairly large demand up until the ability of our client company to deliver. We don't want to outrun our coverage. We want to make sure we do things correctly, because if our partner stumbles, this hurts our brand and their brand. And this is a reputation-based business. So between this, we put quite a bit of quite a bit of supply together. We're working with some innovative companies. We brought two of these folks along today to talk to you and share with you. Ann Gibbons, who's an exceptional entrepreneur with a great background, and she's working on visualization. So we're providing her with light, as light a support as possible, because she's super smart, and helping her direct one way or the other, putting some CEO coaching resources into place and that sort of thing so she can launch well, but she has revenue. And then Nikhil and his organization with just such phenomenal technology that we're pushing this into the marketplace in the US, and we've got some targets already identified. And so that's what we've got going with Nick. And I want them to share some of their technology with you also, just to give you a flavor of how innovative some of these things can be. But I want to hear from you, Alan, and then Joe. I'm sure you got some questions before I show you some pictures.
Actually, if you don't mind, let me start with classic Joe.
Classic Joe.
Classic Joe Gunter interaction. That was great. You said a lot, and I need it in a sentence or two of positioning. So let me try with headline with super smart Dr. Gunter Wessels. Venture Smarts is the, now we need a noun that people can relate to, and you don't like incubator.
No.
But what is a synonym for incubator that is not hatching?
Well, no, it's more of this studio.
Studio is not relatable. I don't know what a studio is. I know what an incubator is.
Mm-hmm.
So I might say incubator despite you, because I know what that is.
You would.
Well, incubator that what?
Huh?
I need to be able to, when I tell my friends about you,
mm-hmm.
as I do, but now you've got this new thing. So colloquially, oh my God, Gunter just started this incubator-like platform that,
Mm-hmm.
what's different besides
that reduces
you and you're smart?
Yeah. No, this is very simple. It reduces the friction between concept and market adoption. We make it as fast as possible for your concept to get it up and out.
Okay, you just described the aspiration of every incubator.
Yeah, but I do it.
Yes, I know. So I got it. Point of difference equals Gunter.
And Alan, and Ann, and Nick. Once you meet them, you'll see why.
Okay. Point of difference is Gunter plus team.
Mm-hmm.
He's assembled an amazing group of very great people. But is there I'm struggling with the not incubator. I definitely get the, yeah, but it's Gunter. You win.
It's the commercialization up and down the value chain from what Gunter does with his training 10,000 salespeople personally, up and down the value chain from the Fortune 50 companies that he's done over the last 20 years to the 40 plus early stage companies that I'm bringing him now. We are helping the smallest companies to the largest companies help commercialize worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
That all works for me. If I were to just say Gunter and his team, including Alan, because I can't boast about you the way I do Gunter. It takes a decade. Go on. If I were to say, again, if I were to say Gunter started an incubator, I get it. But it's the fact that you spent the first 3 minutes saying, no, it's not an incubator.
I said I don't like the term because it's a put down.
But you also went on about how, typically if you don't put in cash and then people aren't as committed and then it's a letdown. So what's different? It's more than just Gunter plus smart people. Yeah. It's unlike incubators because what?
So we're also putting our money where our mouth is. So with these commission-only salespeople, we only get paid if we're able to bring this information to the bedside and be successful. Whether we're improving, we're improving revenue for these health institutions, whether we're lowering costs, or whether we're introducing clinical efficiencies up and down the value chain. That's what we're doing. We're bringing the most senior salespeople who have done this for 20 years and presenting to these clients like. I'm a serial entrepreneur in early stage companies. I can't be the CEO and the VP of sales and go out and get funding, and do HR and all those things. Although, something's going to break down. So almost every CEO we're talking to or founder of these early stage companies are desperate for our services to help them commercialize, to get them to the next level.
Okay. I'm gonna be back. I have people typing synonyms for.
There we go.
No, I get it. And, yes, Mark, accelerator, it's definitely one that I've used as well. And growth hatchery, professional service, yes. Facilitator, yes. It's elevator. Thank you, everybody. I also
Ooh, there's Mancini saying it right. We're
elevator.
We're a entrepreneurial elevator. Sure, that's going to be very communicative.
Joe, just to give you an example, we had a meeting this morning with an incredible company that wants to raise money, that's doing some really interesting stuff in children's hospitals and other places. We sat with them and we immediately saw this wasn't one company that's going to change the world. This is 3 companies that are going to change the world. And so they didn't even realize that. So that's the kind of thing that we're just able to help to articulate and help them build the value, and be able to have a hyper-focused approach to 3 different approaches.
Mm-hmm. One of them is market ready. We can put into the market. It will make a huge impact and it tees up the rest of the business, but it also funds the rest of the business, which has a longer cycle time to get started. Has a very meaningful clinical impact, changes the way that healthcare will be practiced in a way that is not against the grain, but with the grain. So when we come to it, Joe, I mean, that's the thing. So it's healthcare, it's medical devices. We're not new at this medical stuff, right? I mean, the up and down the value chain, is valuable because of the perspective. We've seen a bunch of stuff from big and small companies succeed and fail, and a lot of big company failures. And it's because of friction in the value chain between the concept and the customer adoption. Now, everybody on customer adoption, you got to get your market right. What are people going to pay for? All these things. And quite simply, we solve that problem with our demand creation as a service sales team, who are the first ones to spit it out and go, this is crap. And even though they think it's good, the customers will sit there, and with enough resistance, we get enough data back to say, you got to probably pivot or, try again. We're able to get massive amounts of feedback in very quick time. And when it sells, you create a revenue ramp that makes our investors and other investors much more focused on giving you the right level of funding for the right level of equity. And as a result, there's a virtuous circle. So maybe, Joe, that's it, right? We're a virtuous circle.
But not only that, Joe, so we just sent out an email to, we found this incredible technology, and we just reached out to 6 different FOJs, friends of Joe, because we want to get them all smart friends of Joe in a room together for an incredible medical device. So we know it takes a village. So we are gathering 6 of these friends of Joe's, getting them in the room together, and we're going to have an incredible group think on this technology.
Is that an example or for real?
That's for real.
Oh, I don't know who the 6 are, but tell me later.
No. We're not. Yeah. We'll do Friends of Joe later. It's by nomination only. So all the Friends of Joe right now are beginning to wonder about their strength of the relationship, aren't they?
Are all of you leaving me at the top of the hour?
Probably. But here, let's get Ann on real quick. Let me show you one of these.
I really apologize, because this is, clearly more than an hour's conversation, and most of these go more than an hour, but I should have known.
Not in my world, baby.
Yeah, I know. What are we looking at?
You're looking at Ann Gibbons, one of the smartest people I've met recently, and she can kick my ass, your ass, and everybody else's ass, and this is a fact.
This is the physical challenge, like hand-to-hand combat, or
yeah, she'll beat your ass. Yeah.
Well, I won't challenge you, but I was the first woman to box at the Naval Academy, and in my first fight, I knocked my opponent out in the first round. And I've sparred a bunch of men, like SEALs and big guys who went Marine infantry, so I can hold my own. So I guess I fit sort of as a startup CEO, ready to go. But before I explain,
I've never been more intimidated on my own conference call.
I know, right?
But I'm so friendly and nice.
I know.
But just knowing that you can infirm me is. Now, I do have one thing you don't have, and that is the ability to kick you off this call and not tell you where I am, and to run away from you and your boxing club. But
he's in Seattle, and we can make it happen.
This is all very friendly. I don't feel immediately threatened, but You know, I did get up late and I don't have my pills in me, so.
You know what I have with me right now? My kombucha that says love. I am such a nice, welcoming, friendly presence on this call. I can just protect you. Think about it that way. If we go
Ooh.
drink tequila, I will fight the bad people. So you can support
Absolutely.
tequila.
That is a much, Gunter, you could learn from this woman. That's a much better
I
way.
do. I'm edified by everybody on the team, including our founders who are super, super smart.
So I
Okay,
wanted
I
to
was
offer,
curious by this image that you have on our screen.
well, I will explain in 1 second because I have an explanation to add on to how Gunter's describing their service because I'm using it. So this is the way I see it. I have a background in design thinking consulting. And so all that product type, you know, Google Venture Sprint or design thinking sprint, like I got that, you know, I can figure that out on my own. And it seems like to me, the incubators that reach out and they're like, hey, join us. That's mostly what they offer. Yes, they have networking services and like, you know, will help you like figure out financial modeling and stuff like that. But I'd say that we're in this moment where entrepreneurs are realizing that VC money isn't as good a deal as it was painted out to be. And we, the people that are passionate about our companies, and I want to do this for the next 20 years, I want to preserve as much equity as I can. So if I'm not concerned about an incubator that's, you know, in Silicon Valley and like super tied to that whole like fast cycle of lose as much money as fast as you can of other people's money and iterate a product and spend as much, if I'm interested in going to market and figuring out a business model and making money now, serving clients, then I am like, I need someone like Gunter and not someone like him, but like, that's what we've been doing. And it's worked out really well for me because it's incredibly practical and useful when it comes to understanding. Yeah, like I have an idea of the business model that we want eventually, but that's not what we have right now because we're a startup and our software's beta. And he's able to identify like, oh, this is what you've got now as a business model. This is what you can develop in the next few months, 6 months, a year. And this is then like all the things that you need at this level, like whether it's helping do the basic stuff like sales decks or intros or forming like, hey, when you do this intro, like here's the level of thing that you want for your business model now. So I just think it's an incubator, Gunter, that responds to the moment that we're in, larger around like entrepreneurs not going right to VC money. So VCs and other people with capital are like, fuck, how do we get them? Right. So they're doing these revenue-based financing models and all kinds of other stuff. But I want to keep my equity. And so I'm hanging out with Gunter.
That was great. That was great. And
Uh,
what
Go
he's smart as hell, but he gets a little verbose and he talks in big language, and my mother-in-law would not understand what he's talking about. She could relate to you. I could bring home.
That's not an offer.
No.
Just, yeah.
Yeah.
Not creepy at all.
No. To explain the concept, okay? Listen, so that concept of VC money and burning other people's money and keeping the most equity, I'm very interested in exploring that more.
Mm-hmm.
But time is limited. So please, what on earth is in this photograph, this image that you have on the screen?
It's the coolest fucking thing you've ever seen because what you're looking at is somebody's genius in a new 3D data visualization platform. So it's definitely not my genius. It's my co-founder's. I'm just smart enough to be friends with him. So he's an MD and a PhD in neuroscience and like a mad scientist. Like the guy's gone to every Burning Man in the last 17 or 18 years. He went over to Afghanistan and did medical humanitarian aid missions off and on for 15 years. And on the side, he's been really interested in human computer interaction. So how do we shove more information into our heads, which wasn't as necessary for most people 25 years ago when he started doing this. And, you know, he was doing his clinical rounds at the end of his MD. He's in these hospital rooms and trying to make decisions for a patient. And if you've got time to kind of review records or you've known the patient a while, like that's one thing because you're accumulating knowledge and you just have to remember it. But if you're in crisis and you've got to make a quick decision, it really helps to see more information, see all available information, whether it's the blood work or like the history, like the nurses in the last couple of days and what they've observed with the patient. And so he became obsessed at this point of patient care. Like, how can I save more patients? Well, I could do that if I could see more of the information that's available. And so he figured out that if instead of just going from like a scatter plot, like little circles, to a 3D visualization tool. So now you see a lot of those that have spheres in 3 axes. And he said, well, that's still not enough, right? It's just a couple parameters. But if I take that sphere and I add more 3D objects to it as children in this hierarchical, like, deep branch levels model, I have an unlimited design space now. So this one is like an interesting topology. You can kind of see that it's a ring, and then there's a sphere on top. So we messed with the topology to make it look weird. But each of those different colors is a different 3D object that we've just changed the geometry of to make it look like it's smushed. It's a bunch of rings. So what he figured out is I can like have rods coming off and then more rings and spheres and cones or diamonds or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's showing an unlimited number of data parameters per entity. So this is a day's worth of data. And this is here's another data version. So this is a day's worth of data, and it's kind of laid out weird, but it goes from, I think, like midnight to the morning. Anyway, so I brought together a bunch of wearable data, so my food tracking, my Oura Ring, my Apple Watch, so all my workouts. I was doing a blood glucose monitor like 8 times a day, and a survey that I gave myself on like how focused I was at that each 2-hour interval and the kind of work that I was doing. So I think it was over 45 parameters that are represented in here. And it's kind of chaotic. Like I needed a better design. So I eventually went to a clock face. So you can see like every 24 hours, and then I stacked each day. It's like clocks back to back. So you can see patterns. But the idea is that when you have your information in 3D, these 3D objects, even though at first it's overwhelming, right? It just kind of looks like an art show. Once you learn the symbology, which humans are wired to do, you start really quickly seeing patterns in your data via the like change in size or change in color or change in shape. So you're processing way more information much faster than other visualization tools.
Okay, so in the same spirit of the challenge I gave Gunter earlier, to whom this is the what?
To experts in their field.
Too broad. Experts in what field?
So here's an example. Like we're working with a professional sports team, so they're coaches and scouts.
Okay.
They have mental models of, let's just take the scouts. They have mental models about how they think of an amateur player over time, how they compare players in the current year, how they're performing, like, with the challenge of COVID. And they'll sit around and talk about that, but it's not organized. So even though they're experts, the current data products that they're getting aren't that useful to them in the decisions and the
Let me
conversation.
attempt.
Oh yeah, it's not even still long.
Hold on.
Help them
To
manage
those,
information.
to those interested in measuring biomarkers,
Yeah.
what is the name of this company or concept?
It's Matri Design is my company because I was in the
Fine.
military and I named it when I got out. So it's for matriarch. So I'm a nice lady, not just a boxer.
Yes. Okay. So to people interested in measuring biomarkers, Matri Design is the biomarker visualization tool that helps you combine dozens of data points into one easy to use
Visualization.
fine visualization. Is that it?
We're working on how to say it, but I would say more generally, like we help people manage the velocity of information.
Velocity is too big a word, but we can talk. Again, the reason I brought in my mother-in-law was not to be creepy, and she's deceased. But the point is to be able to explain it to anybody. Gunter would scare the shit out of most people, and frankly, me half the time, but I wear it well because he's a loving person and I know him well. But he's just too damn smart for his own good. It's just too much for people to handle. So I can typically dumb down what he said in a way that people can get it. And I think we're closer because when you first showed me this, I was like, WTF am I looking at? And I'm still, like you say, it's a much easier visualization tool. And I'm like, I do not see, but okay. So good.
So Rick gets it, right? He says, literally take on multiple levels what I do.
Yeah.
Manufacturing, power to visualize many dimensions and just let the team get together, take 5 minutes and look at it and get the answer. That's the vision, right? We have too much data to put on a 3-dimensional plot. So what Anne has innovated here is a way to put a theoretically unlimited, but at least a far greater array of data points together in a way that makes insights easy. It's what is it? It is shorthand for your eyes.
Your brain.
Okay. And Rick, I apologize. You've been very generous this morning, and a shout out to Protestants also celebrating Good Friday. My bad. There are more than two faiths. I get it. But we're on a tight clock, and I didn't
So
help any
Nick
by
Gill,
starting.
and will remain, but Nick Gill we brought along too from the great UK. And go ahead and this is okay, right? I mean, I just went and said okay.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Well, great to be here, and great to see you, Joe. And so I'm definitely not as smart as Gunter or Anne, but I try to be sometimes.
You've got the accent, so it goes a long
Does
way.
it help? The accent helps.
I have to say that Gunter already looks like a fighting machine without this shit on his face. Now this is definitely scarier than any Anne's gonna beat the shit out of me visualization from before. You look like some kind of RoboCop programmed to kill me.
Well,
Nick?
we're hopefully not turning him into the Terminator anytime soon. He
Too
still will
late.
remain a human.
I'm just looking for this screen. I'm looking for the next slide as fast as you can, because this is scary.
This is not scary. This is fucking awesome.
Smile
So,
from time to time.
No,
well,
Nick will
I
explain.
will try and explain this in one sentence.
Right.
So I myself am a computer vision engineer. Most of our team actually comes from a radio physics background, which is all about the science and art of analyzing signals. And what we do, and what Gunter has just displayed here, is a way to understand your health, some key physiological parameters, just by looking at your face. And that's how I would describe this technology in basically a sentence. And what we specifically do is, in Gunter's picture here, is we're looking at color variations on his skin. And those color variations, with those color variations, we can actually extract what's called you probably know this, Joe, a photoplethysmography signal, or PPG.
You flatter. You flatter.
And
Sure, I know that.
of course. And then from this signal, we can extract a range of physiological parameters, including pulse, respiration, oxygenation, stress levels, which is based on heart rate variability, and blood pressure, which is a relatively new algorithm that's still in testing. And now this we really want to make healthcare more accessible in a deviceless and very cost-efficient way. So this is a software tool, purely software, that can enable anyone with a consumer technology device like a laptop or smartphone with an embedded camera, of course. I mean, I haven't seen a smartphone in this day and age without a camera, if I'm honest. But to turn those, to allow anyone who possesses such a device to access their physiology in 60 seconds. And this is our value proposition. Now we have we've done a number of tests on this versus regulated devices such as a pulse oximeter, a respiratory belt, as well as an ECG. And for pulse rate, we were probably in sync with a pulse oximeter by plus or minus 2 beats per minute. For respiration, it's around 3 RPM. For oxygenation, it's about 3%. We've actually even, unfortunately, one of our research scientists, he admitted to, during a clinical study, become deoxygenated over a period of 2 hours, such that his oxygenation fell below 87%. And really the purpose was to see if we can pick up deoxygenation events, as well as a pulse oximeter could do. Yeah, so all in the interest of science, right?
And Nikhil, can you talk about your personal experience, where you show us the demo before and after the COVID?
Shall I
Yeah, go ahead.
And share my
Absolutely.
screen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Is this related to what Anne shared with us, or unrelated?
No, the two of them are actually talking about how they can tie data points together.
But were you independent and you brought them together, or did you find them together?
These are two of the people in our studio, or whatever we're calling it right now.
So Nicholas needs us to sell, and needs us to participate in the revenue.
Nikhil, can you pull up the two different demos right next to each other?
Right. Yeah. So Joe, what I'm going to show you here is me doing this in. Actually, let's go to this. Let's just put this guy in the middle of the screen first. So this is me looking into my smartphone camera. This is the technology working.
This is better to look at than the Gunter one.
Well, now do I look a bit scary? The mesh is just a bit.
Yes, but not nearly as scary as he did.
Nice. But what you can see is after just a few seconds of looking at my face, you can extract my real-time pulse, my respiration rate, my oxygenation. I'll forward this a bit to around 40 seconds, and you've got stress and blood pressure. Now, what Alan just mentioned is that there is a video of me that I took 2 days before I got tested for COVID. So let's just bring this up. So me on the left is healthy. Me on the right is when I look a bit like shit, but I feel okay. And you'll see in a second, there's a stark difference in my physiology, just within a few seconds of looking at my face. Now, my oxygenation appears okay, but one of the things that jumps at me is my pulse rate is through the roof. Bearing in mind, I'm at rest here. And my respiration rate is a little high. My stress level is elevated, which it never usually is. I try and meditate on a daily basis, so I'm usually quite calm and zen. So my stress is elevated here, and that could be a function of an immune response to the virus. But what you can see here is a stark contrast in just a few seconds of when I'm feeling okay and when I am actually infected. And even though I felt okay on the right, I mean, I
Were
didn't
you
really suffer
infected?
that
Did
badly.
you have COVID?
I had COVID, yes. But I didn't suffer that badly compared to some other people. But one thing that really prompted me to go get a test is my physiology. My physiology just looks out of whack here. Like my pulse is just completely through the roof. It would
Can you
never
talk
be.
about this with airlines and passengers as an example?
Yeah,
of use case?
sure. Yeah, sure. So some of the companies we're working with include telemedicine companies, so allowing users to take recordings of their physiology for their doctors or physicians over the call. With the airlines that Alan mentioned, we are currently running a trial with one low-cost carrier, the name's AirAsia, about remotely monitoring pilots and crew members. Now, specifically, they're interested in stress. And actually, they just asked us to research a new feature that they'd like to measure, which is a massive problem within pilots and crew members, which is fatigue. So is there a way that we can extract some variation of fatigue? Now, given that we can measure HRV is a great non-invasive proxy for looking at changes in the autonomic function of the body. And of course, when you're fatigued, you usually see a little bit, you usually see your parasympathetic nervous system become slightly more overactive versus your sympathetic. So a measure looking at those changes through the lens of HRV becomes quite powerful because that gives you a non-invasive way to extract this type of information. But the other use case that we're exploring with the airlines is actually looking at recording passengers pre-flight. So assessing their pulse and respiratory. Pulse and respiratory are by far the two most interested features from the airlines, just because, as you can see here, they could indicate viral infection. Now, it's not a diagnosis. We definitely don't say that this is a diagnosis for COVID. Absolutely not. It's potential indicator. In fact, I would probably look like how I look on the right now if I had any serious viral infection. But it's an indication of whether, indication that something's wrong. And I know Etihad Airways specifically are focused on remotely monitoring pulse and respiration. So in very, very early discussions with that airline. And that is effectively the use case here. I mean, we're trying to make healthcare more accessible, and we think Gunter and his team will unlock a significant amount of value for us, especially with market adoption in the US.
The airline example was critical for me because when I looked at this, I thought, oh, that's cool. What am I supposed to do with this information as I'm sitting here in my house?
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm about to screen 400 people to board my plane, now you're talking. And right now, I'm only aware of shoving very long nasal swabs in my face.
Quite an expense. And
Yes.
still an accuracy problem that makes this the positive and negative predictive value of something like this, which is not a test, is not in question. What you're doing is you're segregating a population into normal and not, which allows me to create a swim lane that we can then do a bit more. So it's like the TSA pre-lane for the main crowd, and then the ones who are a little abnormal go through a special process where we get to hopefully intervene. So telemedicine, remote patient monitoring, an entire group of people who are suffering from chronic disease like heart failure, this sort of thing, HRV and respiratory rate and all that stuff can indicate crisis very quickly and gives clinicians a very, very low weight, easy window into how that's going. Takes 30 seconds.
How did you two find one another?
There's an Alan.
Yeah, it was through Alan. Alan
Okay,
and
how
I
did
connected
you
on
and
LinkedIn.
Alan find one another?
So I connected through Alan on LinkedIn, and it looks like he was doing some interesting things in health tech and being an entrepreneur himself. I thought I could use another friend in the US. Turns out turned out to be more than a friend. Now we have a partnership and a serious collaborator in the US.
So Gunter, I still need to learn from you. I only have 21,000 people on LinkedIn, but people like Nikhil, I found someone else that found me in Belfast, Ireland, and other places, with these interesting things that we're doing. And that's how there's a host of ways that we're, bringing people into this funnel. So very, very excited. Either our reach out or they're reaching out to us, or a host of different methods. So very, very excited about it.
Yeah. And time is short, but still, I'm bringing. Now I'm embarrassed to say, is it hard eye or soft eye? Say your name again.
Nikhil?
No.
Oh, Nick.
No, Mr. Curtis.
Zvi.
Z-E-E. Okay, with an E. You asked a question that merits asking. I know our time is short. Please go ahead.
I'm curious, my background's not in the science part of things, but I do work with a pretty science-based firm, and I'm just wondering what kind of reference data set did you use? I'm assuming you're using various visual biomarkers. What kind of reference set size are you using to compare to create these?
Yeah, sure. Let's just bring something up here which would explain it much better than I'd be able to word this. So let's just bring this slide up. Let's just zoom in on one guy for a second. So can you see my screen here?
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
Gentlemen there, top and bottom.
Yeah. Perfect. So this is example from participants from a study we did. We use in these studies, we typically took a 2-minute recording of this individual's face through our application versus a pulse ox, which is a CMS50E. It's a regulated medical device, quite widely used in the scientific community. And what you can see here is, especially when measuring heart rate. So if you look at the blue line on the graph, that is the pulse rate from the pulse ox itself. And the green dots here are our estimation. So on average, throughout this entire recording, we were out by 1 beat per minute on average. Now, if you look at this individual who had a beard, again, we tested individuals with glasses, with beards, obviously darker skin toned individuals. Pulse ox sometimes can fail that, but so that's what we wanted to validate. So this individual here, you could see that the pulse ox started off around 100, which is, I think, wrong. And then it normalized to around 80. And you can see during this recording, we were off by a bit more, around 2 beats per minute. And this recording, we were off by around, you could see the pulse was a little bit jittery, but on average, we were off by 1.3 beats per minute. And this is a similar situation for SpO2. So we even placed individuals at a further distance, made them wear glasses. Actually, this individual did already wear glasses, so we didn't have to force them on her or something. But you can see that the red line here is from the pulse ox, and the blue line is our estimation of oxygenation. And the difference here is quite small, but what we really wanted to explore was a deoxygenation event. And that's when we actually deoxygenated an individual over, it was a period of 2 hours, and their oxygenation reached below 87%. And that was pretty dangerous. In fact, actually, that is slightly confidential, but I do want to show you. I'm actually going to show you this. So
Just between us.
So let's.
Between friends here.
Exactly.
When I upload this to the web, but go on.
Yeah. So my medical officer says I have to claim that please do not try this at home. But anyway, so this is an experience where a subject was deoxygenated over 2 hours. The blue line here is from the pulse ox, and the yellow line is our estimation of that person's oxygenation. And you can see initially we actually thought this person's oxygenation dropped to 90%, but that may have been a blip. But you can see over the course, we were actually in line with the pulse ox by about 3% on average. And regulatory requirements state that we have to be approved as a medical device within at least plus or minus 4% from a regulated pulse ox. So typically reference data sets, we'd always use either regulated devices such as a pulse ox or any other regulated devices such as respiratory belts. or especially for blood pressure, it'd be blood pressure cuffs. Although for blood pressure, you'd always want to use arterial blood pressure devices. I've just seen so many, variations in blood pressure recordings from cuff devices. So that's typically the scoop.
Christian, you want to ask your question? I don't know if you can unmute yourself. You show up
Christian.
twice. Well, in the
I don't
absence,
think audience members who are not made a panelist can speak.
no, but I did make,
Oh.
Christian shows up twice. So let's see which Christian is the real Christian.
Please stand up.
Okay, we'll try that.
And thank you, Nikhil. That was fascinating. Like really interesting.
Thanks, Ree.
Anyhow, in the meanwhile, Christian, can you, I don't know, I'll read what's written here. I'm curious.
Am I unmuted? Sorry.
You're there.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I was just curious. I think the technology is great. I love the fact that you can move this kind of to a home base or anywhere and get quick readings. I just, I even have the Enora app on my phone, and it was just fascinating to see what you have. And I'm just curious what your value proposition is compared to those things that are out there already. Do you think that there's an issue from an IP landscape standpoint? And, what are your differentiators?
Yeah, sure. I would
put on your camera if you can. Let's see who we're talking with.
Yeah, sure. See my basement. It's a little bit.
And Michelle, you had a question too.
So I was wondering if you guys are going for like just a general wellness indication, like a Fitbit or Apple Watch, or if you had planned to go to the FDA through some of this, because a lot of the features on those devices are becoming regulated.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'll quickly answer Christian's question, and then I'll come straight over to you, Michelle. So Christian, just to answer your question, that there are actually many different ways, especially within the scientific community, of how to do this. So neurologics do, in terms of IP, there's actually many different ways of doing this, and actually patenting software is a big pain, which I've come to learn myself. And you have to get really specific. And there's one of the things we actually do quite well is extract the cardiac rhythm of an individual. So that's something specific that we do quite well. And that has led us to explore a lot of other things we could potentially do with this application, such as detect atrial fibrillation risk and other common cardiovascular issues. And that's probably a route we may go down in terms of our future roadmap. We start looking more at common cardiovascular issues. But one of the things actually we work quite well at doing is recalibrating to different lighting conditions on the fly. So that's usually a hard problem to solve, just because our field source is light. Now, when light penetrates your skin, you can see these color variations in your skin, but when there's not enough light, you do need to try and find ways to amplify the signal in that in that situation. So that's one of the things we do quite well. We call this method our recalibration method, which is we recalibrate to darker conditions. Now, it's called recalibration because I couldn't think of a better word. It's actually what we do. We recalibrate different wavelengths of light to amplify the signal. That's effectively what we do. Now, that's one thing we have just filed for provisional for in the US. So that's the, I would say whilst we respect our competitors, we all have different strengths. So neurologic strengths may be in certain different areas. Our strength would definitely be in extracting cardiac rhythms. Hope that answers your question, Christian. More than happy to.
Yeah, no, that was great. It's always great to hear how you can articulate the differentiation, because clearly a lot of people out there trying to get into this space, and I think understand your differences that off you are.
100% agree with you. Absolutely.
So thank you.
Absolutely. And Michelle, just to answer your question of whether we stick to either being wellness indicators or go down the FDA path. So whilst we are currently commercializing as a health and wellness tool, we do eventually want to become FDA and CE approved. So we have tied up with a number of academic organizations, and our plan is to conduct a number of clinical studies over the year to show the efficacy of the device against comparator devices. And so we have a timeline of about 9 months to become FDA approved. And that really will help adoption within public healthcare organizations, because for those individuals, they want to use this type of tool as a diagnostic tool, not just as a health and wellness tool. So we definitely think that route, whilst going to market as a health and wellness tool, we definitely want to be eventually going to market as a as an FDA-approved device. And to be honest, specifically, we'll be looking to get approved on specific features, such as atrial fibrillation. So measuring atrial fibrillation, which is based on looking at irregularities in the cardiac rhythm. Those are specific things we'll look to get approved first, just because that has a definitive use case and a definitive intended use.
Let me interject. I'm hyper aware of the top of the hour, since Gunter was very definitive at his time limit. Do you need to jump off, my friend?
I do. Final quick comments. The ecosystem Joe's created here, I think, is very much generative of this kind of thinking. It's one of the reasons we continue to participate, and both Nick and Ann present a real interesting contrast in how you can utilize your support infrastructure, but also how innovation kind of makes its way through. So very much appreciate what we're doing here, and want to continue this sort of dialogue, because the only way we survive in a, what do we call it? A virtuous circle, Joe? That's what you agreed to, is by partnering widely. And so we continue to do this with folks who do different services and such, because we find we have patents that we need to help push through. We have a bunch of other stuff. But if you're late stage, and like Nick and like Ann, we have different services we can do there. And I think this was one thing to hopefully just show this ecosystem. There are ways to go to market that don't involve giving up the life and health of your organization. And Brian just put you there if you want to chat with us and that sort of stuff. We like to talk. Engagement at Liquid Smarts. Hugs and kisses, Joe. I have to go. I don't know if you can stay, Ann, Alan, Nick, but
yeah, I can.
We got to roll. We'll carry on without you, and I'll elevate Brian to your place as you go.
Bye.
Are you spending Easter with the girls?
Actually, not my weekend. We actually have some time off. All the kids are gone. What would a couple do? Sleep, rest.
Okay.
No, not so new, not so young, but
well,
you know how it is.
It's early stage. Anyhow.
Indeed. All right. All the best. Thanks.
All right. Bye. I think he passed the baton to you, Alan, otherwise known as Gunter Wessels here. Gotta stop doing that. I'm gonna rename you. Let's see, there we go, Alan. How did you and Gunter get together, Alan?
Through a mutual connection, thought that we would work out together, and again, just similar approaches in the wanting to help as many patients as possible. That's once I realized that, and I wasn't going to be a doctor, want to stay in the helping profession. That's what I focused on. Even though I'm not touching patients, I want to help as many patients as possible. And talking to Gunter about serving the underserved all the way up to everyone else that needs healthcare, I think we were very aligned. I think I bring a very different set of experiences that he does, and again, to be able to round out these early stage companies and complement a lot of the work that he does on the larger stage companies. So
I am now aware. I thought that I was the one with the most connections on LinkedIn up until you showed up. 21,000, you got me.
Yeah, but I've been on LinkedIn for 14 years.
It's a sheer number, but
so I've been on LinkedIn for 14 years, and 14 years ago I wasn't as discerning on people, and what I'm trying to do is actually start deleting a bunch of people that I'm not as connected to, because I really want people on LinkedIn to be people I actually know and have a relationship with, and can turn to. You can't really mass delete on LinkedIn, so it's a little bit frustrating that you have to do it sort of one at a time. I think because you max out at about 25K or 30K, and I still want to sort of add curated people. So just like your group, where you know everyone personally and you interact with the group, that's what I'm trying to have that. So it's not just, it's the number doesn't mean anything. The point is, yeah. So I learned that from you.
However, I hadn't realized that you were that connected. It's obviously a goal of yours to be a facilitator as I am, and I hadn't appreciated that in you until you told me. Brian, I see that you are thinking, and you've got chess
consistently and constantly.
So, tell the kind folks at home what you do and why I might have elevated you to the panel here.
I actually keep my foot inside of both sides of our operation. We do also, besides running an incubator, we also run training, consulting, and technology. So we've got these divisions that are inside of our company, and I keep my foot firmly inside of each one of them, meaning that my days start at 3 a.m. typically travel until 5 p.m. And that's covering time zones all the way from India into the Pacific time zone as well. So what I'm doing is coordination on the front end, bringing people into the company, getting introductions into what we do and how we do it. And then getting the alignment between them and our organization to make sure that we can all do good collaborative work when we're bringing ourselves together, which is typically 3 to 5 times a week, depending on what we actually have going that week.
I was paying somewhat of attention, and please just, who is that?
In my background?
No,
Anne.
we don't care. We want to meet Anne's dog.
My pit bull.
They're supposed to be mean, intimidating animals. Like, you know what? This is all coming together, Anne.
My
But
baby.
You could be a mean, intimidating animal, but you're loving and you're drinking your love kombucha today, and here's your pit bull and it's all licky and happy.
How we like it here.
All right, fair enough.
Brian and team, in addition, one of the other things he's doing is to try to keep all the things that we're bringing straight, because we're doing so many different things, because we're bringing in a bunch of these commission only salespeople, these very senior people, and Brian is really helping part of the team to onboard them and bring them into the fray, and put them in our stand-up calls, so we all get to meet and meet each other and share ideas. And also, as we have all these different companies that we're launching, I don't know if Gunter mentioned, we're launching 15 companies this week for these 8 or 9 salespeople to offer their goods and services to, that we mentioned before, that either improve outcomes, improve revenue, reduce costs, or have some sort of clinical value. So there's a lot of moving parts that we're sort of have done in the past month and a half, and Brian is really very, very valuable to sort of help us with all of that. So we really appreciate all this help.
The gatekeeper.
Coincidentally, I didn't realize that Nick and Anne are on the call, and Nick and Anne, I'm actually tagging both of them into an opportunity that I currently have going. So there's many opportunities that go there, and some of that coordination has to end up happening between multiple different incubated companies that we're looking at. And we want to be able to try to bring them together as many as possible inside of our opportunities, and then also allow us to be able to farm our resources into their opportunities as well. So we do a lot of back and forth agile with that.
Is there going to be like a virtual national sales meeting next week where all of the companies of interest will present to the sales team to get their interest level about?
We're sort of doing it on a rolling basis. I mean, Gunter's going to sort of launch it, but we've already had 2 or 3 of these meetings, hour and a half long meetings with each of these companies, where the salespeople are all getting on and peppering with questions and understanding how they market it, peppering the owner or the founder to figure out if there's any holes there, so that they can have the smoothest glide path when they go out and do the expertise on it. And again, they don't have to be experts on all these products just because there's so many products, but we're doing them and bring them into these, what we're calling these closing rooms, where we'll have these experts like Nikhil, like Anne in there, and we'll have people, our sales team will bring in people that are interested in a certain topic, be it for a CFO level or whatever, all the different components. And then you have experts in there, and then we let Nikhil and Anne tell their story to a group, a curated group that already has assigned interest to that specific topic. And we think that's a very valuable approach to be able to, and we think we'll have a very, very high close rate of people that have already had an interest from the salespeople's perspective. Then you bring them into the experts, and you really have some group think. And we really like that idea.
I appreciate that. I just asked Mark Holterman to come on. He may or may not. We've actually not spoken, Mark and I, but when he wrote me this week through another mutual friend, I knew what we were talking about this week, and I was like, oh my God, you have to join this call. So hoping that, yes, Mark, we will have a recording of this, as we always do. If Mark, you want to come on and introduce yourself and help me catalyze why I saw this connection, that'd be great. Otherwise, we'll perhaps draw to a close. It's clear to me that you've got, this isn't surprising, something exciting going on here. And I think a challenge, as you saw I had early in this call, is figuring out the best way to explain it, because you've got a lot of tentacles here, and a lot of things that you're doing, and how they all fit together, and who I should bring to your attention. I mean, what's characteristic of a salesperson that I should say, you got to call these people because you might be part of their ecosystem. One of the conversations, and this is years back, was whether medical device salespeople should ever accept a job on which they are solely paid a commission. And it sounds to me as though that might be part of your
we can be flexible. I mean, we have people will start on the commission only if they desperately need a W-2, we can, and they show that they're bringing stuff in, we can flip them to a W-2, health insurance, all that kind of thing. Whatever it takes. We you know, these are very senior people who know how to sell, have documented over years that know how to sell. That, you know, we vetted them, you know, over discussions, and we know what they do, and you sort of work together on it, and we know very, very quickly whether it's working or not working for both of them. Some people will come in because they're in between jobs and they'll come in for a couple months, and some people will, you know, come in here and they'll be here for a much longer period of time. And we're really open to whatever works. We think the Uber model of this, which is we're going to give you the lists, we're going to pre-grind them for you, and there's 15 products or 20 products, and you go out to whatever the thing that you want to do is, whatever you feel most comfortable with. People come in, what's my quota? No, there's no quotas anymore. There's none of that anymore. It's what do you want to work on? What are you passionate about that you think you can make the most impact? And Brian and our team wants to prepare you the most as possible and give you tools, sales tools, so we can send out decks and information and have that tracked so we can see what's happening, the founders can see what's happening. So this really works for everyone. And this is not cold calling. We're giving them pre-ground lists of places to go that we believe have the best impact of that. And, you know, we're finding people that we all like to work with. And that's what we think is really going to work about this.
You called our meeting today demand generation as a service, and only now is it kind of coming into focus for me, because I didn't really know what it meant. I was like, sure, that's a good title, let's go ahead, but I didn't really understand.
Joe, one of those things that actually plays into this as well too is that old principle that Atlassian, the people who generated Jira, first came to, and that was that they took one day a month and they said, okay, go do what you want to do. And the most innovation was made in that one day a month. The way they moved forward, the way the Jira became what it is as a tracking tool, that's how it became one day a month. And really what we're representing is that culture as an agile culture, the ability for us to take our processes and our people and move them where they need to be in the most effective place. And we do that through the process that Alan just described. That is our culture, and it is a culture to be able to keep with that and move that forward, because people are most effective when they're doing what they do, how they do it, and doing it in their best way. That's the way we keep the culture moving forward. That's the way the best sales are made. And that's the way the credibility is built in the market, is by being yourself and moving yourself forward in the way you need to.
It's rather consistent with something somewhat unrelated, but that I teach, and that is I encourage people to record themselves all the time, because when you're in the flow doing what you do, that's the best marketing you're ever going to do for yourself. So I had a friend yesterday, I shared an article that I'd written some time ago. She asked, when's the last time you wrote like that? I said, it's been a while. She was like, wow, you do this so well. And I appreciated that. But the point is that, you know, the reason I invited Mark on the call is he wanted to understand kind of what I'm about. And I said, come to this call and you'll understand, because this is me doing what I do. Every once in a while, I might say something smart marketing wise, but otherwise it's really just about facilitating things. I want to close with Anne. Again, because I'm still intrigued about the money. Most firms like Gunter, again, from an incubator, what can I relate to? I'm trying to understand this model. Or you give me this much of your equity and I'll do these things. Does Gunter and company have no equity in your company?
Not yet, but this is probably fits with, you know, I've only known you for a little over an hour, but I feel like this is how you work. So he doesn't have a piece of paper that says he's going to get equity, but it's what we discussed. He's like, hey, this is how we want to work, right? Like we have some services that at some point, like as you grow, you're going to probably need like in the next 4 to 12 months, like some HR backend and other backend sales and stuff, right? And like, that's pretty clear. Like you sign a contract and it's commission. But until then, he's been helping me.
Let's just play it by ear. Yes. And bless you for catching it. That's exactly how I work.
And yeah, he doesn't have a piece of paper that says he'll get equity, but he'll get equity.
And in the meanwhile, has there been any transfer of value from you to him?
No, not yet.
I would take and say Anne's transfer value to me specifically inside the organization. I'm going to carry that forward, and we keep all grabbing in different parts of that. There are pieces of the business that aren't just Gunter, and they will be moving forward, and we all keep trying to be able to keep that same thing. Gunter says we edify him every day. really, we try to edify each other every day. And that's in not only the companies that we work with, but also internally within ourselves and our organization that sits squarely inside of the Liquid Smart side.
Can I say, this is for many denominations, a spiritual time of year, a spiritual weekend.
Mhm.
I can't think of a better way to end the call. And yet Mark just showed up with his mask on. And so I'm compelled to give him an opportunity to say hello. Please do so.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I was in and out seeing patients. So I got most of what you talked about, though. So keep up the good work. And a happy holidays, everyone.
But now that we have you, quickly, tell me why Edward put us in touch with one another. And was I right in saying, if you come on this call, you'll see kind of what we're about here?
Yeah, so what I'm doing in my semi-retired stage in life, I still see patients and they say COVID urgent care clinic, but I do biotechnology development. So I'm always interested in new devices, new therapies, and working with the ILO CX team, we're finding a new way to get startups funded. And so that's kind of what we do. And the attraction of the ILO platform is it's much less dilutive to get funding. So I use a combination. I'm interested in a combination of ready for revenue products that I can sell, and the ILO licensees can make money on, but also then there's money in the kitty for me to put into startups, both in medical devices and drugs and therapies. So that's what we're doing through ILO.
Very, very loosely, it sounds as though you and Alan should talk and have something similar kind of going on. Very loosely.
Okay.
Where in the world are you, Mark?
Chicago.
I've heard of it. Nice place.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Doctor. And,
okay, great.
Brian, thank you for that very eloquent way, as I was saying, to end our spiritual call today. For those of you who observe, a blessed holiday, and lovely meeting you all.
Thank you, Joe, for the opportunity. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks again for the
so
time.
much, Joe. It's great to meet you.
Bye, Joe.